In this video lesson, we'll discuss the economic stresses of war and how it impacted the economy of the North and South. Blessed with a large share of the wealth, the North rode through the financial breakers much more smoothly than the South. Excise taxes on tobacco and alcohol were substantially increased by Congress, and an income tax was levied for the first time to increase the flow of money. Customs receipts likewise proved to be important revenue raisers. Early in 1861, after enough anti-protection, the Southern members had seceded. Congress passed the Morrill Tariff Act, which superseded the super-low tariff of 1857, which increased existing duties 5 to 10%. These modest rates were soon pushed sharply upward by the necessities of war. The increases were designed partly to raise additional revenue and provide more protection from the prosperous manufacturers. The protective tariff became identified with the Republican Party, as American industrialists, who were mostly Republicans, had welcomed the benefits. The Washington Treasury also issued greenbacked paper money, totaling nearly $450 million at face value. The printing press currency was inadequately supported by gold, and hence its value was determined by the nation's credit, which was fluctuating with the war, making it unstable. The holders of notes, victims of creeping inflation, were indirectly taxed as the value of the currency slowly withered in their hands, yet borrowing far outstripped paper and taxes. The federal treasury netted $2.6 billion through the sale of bonds, which bore interest and were payable at a later date. The modern technique of selling these issues to the people directly through drives and payroll deductions had not yet been devised. Accordingly, the Treasury was forced to market its bonds through the private banking house of J. Cook & Company, which received a commission of 0.3% on all sales. A financial landmark of the war was the national banking system, authorized by Congress in 1863. Launched partially as a stimulant to the state governmental bonds, it was also designed to establish a standard banknote currency. Banks that joined the national banking system could buy government bonds and issue sound paper money backed by them. The war-born National Banking Act thus turned out to be the first significant step taken toward a united banking network. The system continued to function until it was replaced by the Federal Reserve System. An impoverished South was beset by different financial woes. Customs duties were choked off as the coils of the Union blockade were tightened. Large issues of Confederate bonds were sold at home and abroad, amounting to nearly $400 million. The Richmond regime increased taxes sharply and imposed a 10% levy on farm produce, but in general the states' right Southerners were opposed to heavy direct taxation by a central authority. The Confederate government was forced to print blue-backed paper money with complete abandon, so runaway inflation will occur in the South as Southern presses continue to grind out the poorly backed Treasury notes. Overall, the war inflicted a 9,000% inflation rate on the Confederacy, contrasted with only an 80% inflation rate for the Union. Wartime prosperity in the North was miraculous. The marvel is that it divided a nation, could fight a costly conflict for 4 years, and emerge seemingly more prosperous than ever. New factories, sheltered by the new protective tariffs are going to spring forward. Soaring prices resulting from inflation unfortunately pinched the day laborer and the white-collar worker to some extent, but manufacturers and business people were gaining from the war effort. The Civil War bred a millionaire class for the first time in American history. Many of these newly rich were noisy, gaudy, brassy, and given to extravagant living. Their emergence merely illustrates the truth that some gluttony and greed mar the devotion and self-sacrifice called forth by war, such as the Civil War. Yankee Sharpness appeared at its worst. Dishonest agents, putting profit above patriotism, palmed off aged and blind horses on government purchasers. Unscrupulous northern manufacturers supplied shoes with cardboard soles and fast disintegrating uniforms of reprocessed or shoddy wool rather than pure wool. Newly invented labor-saving machinery enabled the North to expand economically, and the sewing machine wrought wonders in fabricating uniforms and military footwear. The marriage of military need and innovative machinery largely ended the production of custom-tailored clothing. Graduated standard measurements were introduced, so sizes were born. Clattering mechanical reapers proved hardly less potent than thundering guns. They not only released tens of thousands of farm boys from the army, but fed them their field rations. Producing vast surpluses of grain that, when sent abroad, helped dethrone King Cotton, they provided profits for which the North was able to buy munitions and supplies from abroad, and contributed to the feverish prosperity of the North and the Union during the Civil War. The discovery of petroleum gushers in 1859 had led to a rush of 59ers to Pennsylvania. The result was the birth of a new industry, and pioneers continued to push westward during this war, altogether an estimated 300,000 people. They were major magnets for free gold nuggets and free land under the Homestead Act of 1862. Strong propellants were the federal draft agents, and ocean-carrying trade was going to suffer a crippling setback. The Civil War was a woman's war, too, though protracted conflict opened up new opportunities for women. When men departed, women often took jobs in their stead, and especially in the government. The booming military demand for shoes and clothing, combined with the technological marvels like the sewing machine, likewise drew countless women into industrial employment, and the ratio rose from 1 to 4 to 1 to 3 industrial workers being women. Other women stepped up to the fighting front or close behind it. Some women accompanied their husbands, others took on dangerous spy missions, others became nurses. Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell, America's first female physician, helped organize the U.S. Sanitary Commission to assist the Union armies in the field. They trained nurses, collected medical supplies, and equipped hospitals. And the women's movement will eventually develop and follow this. Clara Barton and Dorothea Dix, superintendent of nurses for the Union Army, helped transform nursing from a lowly service to a respected profession. The South fought to the point of exhaustion. The suffocation caused by the blockade, together with the destruction wrought by the invaders, took a terrible toll. The South claimed only 12% of the national wealth in 1870, only 30% in 1860. The Civil War squeezed the average Southern income to 2/5 of the North. Transportation collapsed. The South was driven to pulling up rails from the less used lines to repair the new ones. To the brutal end, the South mustered remarkable resourcefulness. Women buoyed up their menfolk. The self-sacrificing women took pride in denying themselves the silks and satins of their northern sisters. At war's end, the northern captains of industry had conquered the southern lords of the manor. A crippled South left the capitalistic North free to work its own way with high tariffs and other benefits, northern manufacturers, and the Industrial Revolution. The South of 1865 was to be rich in little but amputees, war heroes, ruins, and memories. We'll discuss more about the impact of the Civil War on the North and the South in our classroom discussions.